Welcome to 50/50 Books, the book review podcast where the books are split in two and figuring out just what is going on is always a toss-up. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jonathan. This episode we are reading The Drowning Summer by C.L. Herman, up to but not including Chapter 18. So Taylor, I feel like we've chosen an interesting book this time. Anytime I both can't find it at the library or find an audiobook of it, I know that it's maybe not the most popular book out there, at least at the moment. Which kind of gets me excited to figure out what's going on, but I'm curious how you're feeling about the book so far.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like a bit in a reading like funk right now, which isn't great. Like my mood is already a bit bad, so it took me a while to get into it. But other than like a few style things, which I think we have in common, it's relatively a good read.
Yeah, I'd say I've found it pretty fun to read so far. It has kind of the mystery vibe to it, but it is more paranormal based. And I think we've done some paranormal stuff on the podcast before, but this seems to be in its own niche, at least in my opinion, compared to some of those other things, which I really like. And some of the scene, like I wasn't expecting to get descriptive scenes, honestly, of like the interactions with spirits and ghosts and stuff. Like it came in pretty hard on the first chapter, being like, we're mediums, like we interact directly with the spirits, like this is what that looks like. So I was like, okay, cool, like some visuals, some actual getting into it. So that's been kind of a fun feature.
Yeah, I was confused a little bit by that, I think, because I wasn't sure like how accepted mediums were, I guess, like how broad knowledge this kind of stuff like ghosts were. I was like, are we like, is it our world or is it a bit more magical? Or but it seems like it's more
right,
like
we're like mediums or like a known class of people or something. Yeah,
because if you can just kind of make a ghost so visually and like, I don't know, the way some people talk about it, it seems like well known, but I guess it's like not. I don't know.
Maybe just if you're in, right? Yeah, there's like some people who hire them for services effectively, but it does sound like you just have to be in a little bit to know that.
Yeah, that's always interesting when you have like magic like this, but it's like so clearly real, right? Like you can't, I guess you could fake a spirit in this world, but it doesn't seem likely. So I'm like, why don't more people know about it?
That's actually a good point, right? Like what's the secret for?
Yeah, I guess it's more like a family trying to keep the knowledge safe type of situation going on.
Yeah. And we'll see that Stella seems to do that with her own daughter a bit.
My
so
God.
so I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned a style thing, and I we've been trying to focus more on style in the second episode about a book, but there is one thing that comes up a number of times in the first half that I just don't think will come up very much in the second half that I think we should talk about now. It is, I think, unusual to so directly state the race of each character as they are introduced, especially like not only every time, but in a situation where there's not a whole lot of racial diversity.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, I think it's similar to clearly stating one's sexuality, right? Like, if it's hard to visually see things in a book, so clearly stating things can be good, because most of the time we do just assume characters are white, the same way we assume they're straight.
Right.
But my issue is, like, there are more clever ways to kind of show that. Like, we have descriptions of people being pale and things like that. It's like, okay, that's enough to know a character is white. And then also, for this book in particular, every character is white, so I'm confused as to why it matters.
At least every main character.
Yeah. There's like maybe 2 characters of color and their background characters. But it doesn't add anything to know that they're white, I guess.
One of the things you said does kind of target where I think it would be more acceptable, which is just visual description. So I think my problem with it is that it seems to be taking the place of visual description in many cases. I mean, we do get some more visual description of the 2 main characters, though I still don't even remember what those descriptions are anyway. But for any of the rest of the characters, I think it's okay to be like, yeah, this is like a Mexican-American character. But if that's like your only description, it's like, okay, you're relying on the reader to use kind of a probably biased idea of what the average Mexican-American looks like to come up with what your character looks like. And I think giving a little bit more detail on even an outfit, right? Like even if it's not talking about physical features, but just something for us to go on where we get a sense of what this character's image is beyond their race, I think that would help.
which actually would fit very well in this book because clothes are kind of very important. Like, Mina is doing fashion design, right? Like, she's making clothes. So, like, descriptions of clothing, how people dress, and, like, having that kind of help characterize people, it already works, but it would work even more so in this book.
Yeah, that's a good point with the sort of, the fashion emphasis.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that stuck out about Weird for this, and this might be digging a little bit, but it's just on my mind, there were a couple of moments where a character was described, and I actually think they were both Mina, now that we talked about this a little bit. I think they were both Mina being described with kind of a character of whiteness being emphasized. So there's one moment, these are kind of like flowery moments where Mina is being talked about, I think in an endearing way, and like maybe trying to emphasize some like interest or attraction from Evelyn. One is that her skin was like glowing in the sun to the point where it was like almost translucent. And the other one where her blonde was being described as like so bright in the fluorescent light that it was almost white. And I understand that these are nitpicky, these are detailed, but they stuck out to me as things I feel like I've read in like in books of the past that are maybe known to have some problematic features, where it's kind of like, what is this obsession with like lightness, whiteness to the point of translucence? Like, I feel like that has come up in sort of older literature when authors have gotten a little bit weird about race.
Yeah, because there's something almost like ethereal about that, right? Like that kind of glow that white people will have, quote unquote, you know?
Yeah.
But it actually, okay, you saying that though, I have a theory, and I'm just going to shoot it off the hip real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
What if, and this is jumping a lot, but we know Mina got sick after the first ritual when they were 10. What if she died?
Like, what if like she's like a zombie?
No, like she's a ghost.
Oh, what the? Okay, yeah, that is interesting. So, like, she would have died when the ritual happened?
Yeah, maybe she got so sick that she actually just died.
But, like, would like it went unnoticed, or?
Or Stella did something to keep her.
Oh, interesting. And, like, maybe that's why she's behaving so oddly about Mina?
Or maybe, like, she's not fully dead, but maybe that connection she has with, like, the more demonic ghost was, like, a tying them together.
And maybe that would explain why she seems to be less medium-like than the rest of her family, but still has some of these connections. Ooh, that's kind of good. Wait. I do think it's wild, but that is interesting.
That's a fun idea. Okay.
Yeah.
So jumping in, we are obviously going to start basically with a summation of what happened in the past, which was 6 years ago when the drowning summer occurred, which is basically when 3 teenagers were found dead with sand dollars over their eyes, which is similar to like kind of Greek passing, although that's more like you'd put a coin in their mouth to pay for the boatman to take you across the river Styx. But in general, coins over the eyes, coins in general associated with the dead is kind of just a respect type of thing, like something you do when somebody passes. So it's very interesting that these supposed murder victims were kind of laid out in this kind of respectful way. It's a little strange.
Honestly, you saying it that way made me think of this in a way I hadn't yet, which is if it was a human killer, which I'm still not convinced it was, that this was maybe kind of in the sacrificial category, right? Of like, they're kind of still giving them, at least maybe that person might be giving them what they see as a respectful death, a respectful laying afterwards. So
yeah, I'm thinking similarly, kind of sacrificial. I guess it just depends who did the sacrifice, which we can talk about later. People think it's Evelyn's dad that was responsible, but the evidence against him is nonsense.
He was nothing.
Yeah, he was like their boating instructor, and like that's it.
I feel like it is such a loose tie, and it bothers me so much that they're like, also like Evelyn was with him when it happened, so there's like an alibi, but then just no one believes her. Right. And they're like, oh, he could have like convinced her to say that stuff, which is just like kind of accusing him of a second crime. So it's not evidence. Like, you can't use this like maybe something happened as evidence if there's no evidence for that too. So that was like weird.
There's no way he would have gotten convicted. Like,
right, exactly.
There's literally nothing. But I guess if you're 10, that's enough for you to be panicked about the idea of him being convicted. Like, you don't know any better. So it makes sense why she and Mina end up doing that ritual to kind of get a ghost to clear his charges.
I kind of think as teenagers, they still think they needed to do that or he would have been in jail. I think there was a comment that Evelyn makes where it's like, if we didn't do that, he'd be in jail. Which maybe, like, if we're thinking of, like, it's a jury of your peers, right? Like, if he is actually tried just by other people in the community and they're unable to get a truly unbiased, jury,
It's possible.
maybe they would have just taken him anyway,
I mean, also, we know that Evelyn's family seems to be more poor, and I don't know if that's an effect of this situation, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like they said it was hard for him to get a job afterwards. It's unclear what was the situation before.
But at the very least, one of the families, the Slater family, seems to be very wealthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And very well known. So there's always that dynamic as well as what could be pulled in certain directions based on money and someone's name.
Yeah, that's a great point, too. There's like all sorts of social dynamics. So I also was just bothered that the mom and sister seem to also think that Greg did it.
Yeah.
Like, they also don't believe Evelyn.
Yeah, which Meredith is kind of... I think the mom just saw it as an opportunity to leave,
maybe
completely.
So.
But Meredith is slightly annoying. I get she was grieving her boyfriend died in that whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know, her coming back and, acting as if she's owed certain things, something about her just rubs me the wrong way.
Oh, same. 100% same.
Yeah, I get you might not like your father, whether you think he's guilty or not for some reason, but it's I don't know, either leave completely and cut him off and stop dealing with it, or get over it.
Yeah,
I guess.
Do something to make things to line up, right? There's no effort here.
Right. I mean, it's possible she blames him for more than just that, though. The mom leaving could also be the father's fault, quote unquote, the father's fault.
Yeah, I do think Evelyn kind of says that too, if she would be mad at the mom if she were here, but since she's not, she's mad at the dad instead.
Yeah, it's just I guess it's just a shitty situation. It's easier to blame your father when everybody is blaming your father. But I don't know. I'm like, girl, depressing. You're an adult. Get over it.
Honestly. So also, I don't know if this stuck out to you where she has that day off and wants to drop Evelyn off. And Evelyn's like, what are you up to anyway? And she's like, oh, I'm going to hang out with an old friend. And that's kind of the end of that. Yeah, I don't know what I'm suspicious of, but I'm suspicious.
Very strange. Considering the trio were up to something paranormal, I don't know. I'm wondering how involved Meredith was with, their whole situation. What she knows about what happened.
Yeah, I mean, she tells Evelyn, oh, it's ridiculous that people send me questions about them being involved with paranormal stuff. Why would they bother asking me about that stuff? So it makes it seem like she doesn't know any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But regardless, as we mentioned, or as I mentioned in my weirdo theory, Mina ends up getting ill because of that ritual, and she gets that sand dollar on her wrist, which seems to disappear for a time, but it'll come back around. The drowning summer itself is never solved. I was a bit baffled by this, because we literally have two mediums in Stella and Dom, and I was confused. But apparently... they have never been able to communicate with the trio, so they don't even know what's going on. Supposedly.
Yeah. I guess it makes sense if their description of what's going on is true, that there's this, demon that may have absorbed them, kind of, right? How would you talk to them individually? But with some of the stuff we see later on, it seems not so clear-cut.
Also, how soon were they consumed,
Good point, right? Could they have asked sooner what happened? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but if they were also distracted by that demon before that even happened, it might have not been number one on the priority list. Who knows what was going on at that time?
That seems crazy, though. You're in a town with your children. Would you not want to find a murderer?
That's a good point.
I guess there's nothing they could do with that information regardless. They can't exactly, tell people they know who the murderer is. Because
they can find a way, though.
I mean, yeah.
They can figure out who it is and then find a way to implicate them.
Yeah. Yeah, but it seems like at the minute nobody knows anything, or at least they're pretending not to know anything. That's 6 years ago. For the present time, which is what we're dealing with right now, obviously, Evelyn ends up redoing the spell she did with Mina on her own because she's helped her boyfriend cheat, but she's the only one that gets caught. this results in them breaking up because he lets her kind of take the fall and is an asshole. But honestly,
Yeah, dude.
Nick isn't so bad. Is that crazy for me to say?
No, I kind of agree with you. Like, it sounds like basically up until this point, he's been like pretty caring and
Right.
doesn't actually have some of the problems I think Evelyn thinks he does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do think there is some kind of weird like rich kid behavior that's maybe just inherent to who he is, but for the most part, I don't think it's. I think he is caring, and I think he's like looking out for her in most other cases.
Right. And we don't know that he hid his involvement because he was like malicious, right? It seems like he was afraid of what would happen if he failed a certain test or whatever. So it makes sense that he's also frightened of what would happen if people figured out he cheated.
I do think he should have owned up, though.
Yes, of course, of course. But he is in a weird position because, I mean, Evelyn is daughter of a supposed murderer, but Nick's older brother was one of the teenagers that died, right? So it's like, what kind of pressure and like scrutiny do you face in that scenario? We don't really get to see much of that. It seems like Nick is like from Evelyn's point of view, he's very privileged. I mean, he is. He's white and rich and all of that kind of stuff. But like, there must be a lot of grief and like fear and like expectation and like a lot of things he's dealing with. Like, is this boy going to therapy? I would love to know.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, because that could definitely inform some of the behavior. I mean, and Evelyn's experiencing her own angle of this too.
Mm-hmm.
Like she mentions multiple times feeling kind of a guilt or kind of owing Nick, even though there wasn't, even though Greg sounds like didn't do it or like couldn't have done it with the ritual, like there's a feeling that she still owes him for what strife he's going through or the perception that her family might have had something to do with it, all that stuff, which is another reason why I'm like not so anti-Nick, because I don't think when Nick's like, I don't believe any of that stuff and that's never mattered to me, I kind of think he's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they both need someone to shape up. Like the relationship was doomed to fail, not because of their actual compatibility even. It was really because of these background outside pressures and expectations and implicit thoughts that were not discussed.
Right. Because like Meredith was dating Nick's older brother. So it's, first of all, it's weird for Evelyn and Nick to date anyway.
Yeah,
that's a little
for sure.
strange.
I was like, that's
but then,
bold.
yeah, there is this kind of shadow being placed over their relationship because of their older siblings. That just makes everything way more complicated. And then, obviously, Evelyn is so insistent that she is alone. Even when she has all of these people around her, she still thinks she's alone and that nobody cares about her. That, like, the idea of Nick actually caring about her is not possible in her brain.
Right. She has to explain it away with other stuff.
Yeah.
I did wonder if it was trying to set up something where, like, Nick is, in fact, kind of a bad guy. And I don't think it is, and I really hope that's not what it is. But there is, a version of this where maybe in the long run, Nick would have like tried to take more advantage of her, right? This definitely was a bad move, him asking her to do this and then letting her take the fall for it, right? Like it is smart of her to break up with him because that is not good. That is not a good look. And just because this is the first time and it didn't go well doesn't mean it'll be the last time. So I kind of think that self-defense is a smart move. I just wonder if the author was implying that he would continue to kind of get worse or if something worse will happen related to Nick.
Yeah. I hope it's not that he's a bad guy, but I don't know. From Evelyn's point of view, she makes him seem like a bad guy.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, hopefully this isn't the case, because I kind of like him.
Yeah, I just want him to be normal, mostly, like just a normal, flawed human, you know?
Yeah. Moving on to Mina, then, of course, we start the book seeing kind of her mom, Stella, talk to spirits using the ocean. And Mina gets to participate in that for the first time because she's kind of been left behind in the medium space for the sake of protection, so it seems. But Mina feels like that pool of the ocean, I guess, and breaks the rules, steps into it, and the sand dollar reappears on her wrist. And obviously nobody tells anybody anything about that happening. But Stella does notice that, like, somebody performed some kind of ritual. And Mina is like, it has to be Evelyn.
Yeah, the connection makes sense, but I think Evelyn pushed back and was just like, why don't you think something you did could have done this? Which I kind of agreed with because she did step into the water, which it's implied isn't really a thing she's done before, like stepping into the water while the spirits are active at night like that. So it's like, to me, I would think that was the source if I were paying any attention. It does seem like Mina was just trying to deflect it from herself, like it couldn't be her own fault, but she just happened to be right. You know?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think it's both of them. Evelyn did perform the spell, but obviously Mina, yeah, she did kind of connect basically for the first time with spirits again, because I think she's been wearing that necklace that like wards off ghosts for years at this point. So it's kind of both of them tapping back into that. I would guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. And they kind of mentioned being linked. Maybe it's not just because, like, it sounds like they were linked from the first summoning situation. So the fact that they would both kind of take a similar dive back into the spirits at the same time makes sense.
Yeah. And thankfully, there's not much animosity between them, I guess. Like, there's this initial confrontation, and obviously they're both a bit defensive, but they start to get along pretty much immediately after that, working through this problem, because they're both being haunted by this spirit.
There's like a pattern of haunting appearing, especially for Evelyn. And there's one scene I wanted to bring up where like she's in a bathroom and there's like, I don't know, just like a lot of things happening there. I don't remember all the specifics, but I only bring it up because it reminded me a lot of that scene in It with, I think, Bev as a kid. Who, like, has like, I think, a similar thing of like being in the bathroom and like blood starts coming out of the sink and all this stuff, where I was like, oh my god, it's like another version of this scene, which I kind of thought was fun.
I could definitely see that. I think that's also when she sees the ghost with the sand dollar eyes, right? In the mirror? Is that right? Or no?
That sounds right, but honestly, I wish I wrote down more of the details because I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, in my brain, a lot of the hauntings kind of blurred together.
Yeah.
There's just like that saltwater smell and like the rot, and yeah. But yeah, Evelyn gets like a clear image of a spirit with sand dollar eyes, and we kind of know pretty quickly that like the drowning trio, sand dollar trio, I cannot remember what they're called in the book, that they're at least involved in this whole goings on. And with them being involved, obviously, Evelyn is very persistent in looking into the drowning summer and thinks solving that will solve their problem.
Seems reasonable to me.
It does. Mina agrees with that, but then also changes a little bit and is like, it might just be more about figuring out how to deal with this spirit rather than solving this mystery. Which they still might be connected, but like one is more paranormal, one is more mystery based.
Which they are kind of two stories, but I think it is very naive of her to think that looking into the other isn't going to help.
Yeah.
Like, at least consider it. You prove for sure that they're not related before you decide you're only going to look at one.
And I mean, for the most part, Mina is still helping Evelyn research things. Like, when Evelyn finds the YouTube video showing the trio were looking into something paranormal, Mina, like, accepts that and, like, asks her mom about it at some point, which it turns out to be true. The trio did come to Stella, but didn't share anything with them.
Yeah, it makes sense to be hesitant to share this information with kind of a kid on the street. I still take issue with the way she's secretive about it with her own daughter. But on the other hand, not telling Mina that the kids visited also makes it like, why would she bother to bring that up, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Mina gets frustrated with a lot of the secrets, as she should, but this is one where I was like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. It does put, like, if you're looking at it from, like, a mystery board, it does put Stella in connection to the drowning summer.
True.
In regards to timeline, which could be, like, problematic, but also there's no reason for Stella to think Mina is investigating the drowning summer. So there's no reason she would share any of that information.
Yeah. I'm sure if she knew, she'd also still not share it, so.
Well, yeah.
This was kind of a moment of tension where it comes out.
I also can't remember if this is when Stella seems quite sure that the trio died by human hands.
Yeah, I believe so, because I think Mina comes back with that of like, oh, you knew they were into paranormal stuff. Couldn't that have something to do with it? And she's like, I'm certain it was done by human hands, which that shifted my mindset a little bit because I, at this point, was pretty certain it was a paranormal thing. Like, I thought the whole thing was going to be Greg couldn't have done it because they maybe in a way did it to themselves by interacting with spirits, and then the spirits got them, you know?
Yeah.
For Stella to say like it was done by human hands, she's like a professional in this field, you know. I feel like I need to take her word for something, like maybe there is a good chance that it was actually a human. But I just need to know what signs she's using to make that call. But I would think she knows something if she's saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, considering she was able to tell when Evelyn did the ritual, that maybe she could feel like that no ritual was done to kill them type of situation. Like she couldn't feel anything like that from the trio.
Just curious too with the whole demon situation, right? To like not be more unsure. Is she, especially because she comes out and it's like, actually, the demon's been around for a long time, like way before that thing happened. So it is shockingly sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But it seems like we might get more answers from the demon themselves. Mina has like this weird connection to the spirit, and like they kind of set up a meeting.
And this seems to be like the clearest sort of connection Mina has had with any of the spirits. This one's not super muddled. Like it doesn't seem as scary as maybe some of the other stuff. Of course, like Stella has been pointing out that it's dangerous and she shouldn't trust a spirit like this, and she's gonna do it anyway because that's just the vibe of this relationship. It's just like not communicating properly about what's going on, doing dangerous things, and being like, oh no, that was dangerous. But hopefully it pays off.
Yeah, because this is kind of the first. It's like the only thing they can really do. Like Evelyn has her own vision of the waste plant, which they look into, and like there's the whole pollution, and that could be exacerbating like the ghost situation because of like a bad climate situation. But like even knowing that, and like I'm assuming that's how the spirit became more demonic, I guess, like that still doesn't help us figure out what's going on.
That's true. I do kind of like what this opens up, though. There's been a few mentions from Stella about like how the nature situation leads to the spirit activity, right? Like being something about the Long Island Sound in particular really inducing spirit activity or keeping spirit activity around. And then yeah, like this idea that the spirits have been escalating kind of intensity over the past decades. So I kind of like this connection with like potentially climate change or pollution, like having something to do with them. And I too find myself theorizing the way they were of like, what does salt have to do with it? Like the Long Island Sound is brackish. Like, what does that mean for this? It's surrounded by all this land, but it's a big body of water. There's like a lot of reasons that you can start to think of how nature and spirit could be connected here, and like what that could mean for this activity. What's unclear about it is if there is a one particular trigger that has led to this kind of demon creation. Like I think it's interesting that the waste plant's being brought up, but it's confusing as to why the trio would be the ones bringing that up. And also like if they are distinct from the demon, like what that means for the character of the demon, right? Like if they are actually a part of it or not. The way that Stella seems to think so. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling now, but I'm really enjoying the sort of natural connection.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Evelyn clearly is like into marine biology. Like a lot of her bits bring up like environments and adaptation and like a lot of scientific stuff basically. And Mina notes she's kind of like the future of mediumship, like the way she's theorizing about how ghosts work and the way she's distinct from like Mina's family practices. It feels very new basically, and then Mina obviously being tied to like that old way kind of like obviously Mina is going to find her own path, I would assume, in this book, but like so far it's interesting to see kind of that divide, new age and like traditional, I guess.
Yeah, I like that angle of it being like new age, and there's kind of the family explanation of it, like the Zanettis do medium things this way. Like now Evelyn has kind of the ability to decide what that is for her because she doesn't, at least is not currently aware of mediums in her own family.
Right. And Mina offered like we could tell Stella and she could teach you, but Evelyn is like, I don't want Stella to teach me, I want you to teach me.
Now that I disagree with. She should not be doing that. She should absolutely be talking to Stella about this. I think they should be talking to Stella about a lot more. Like I understand why Mina is so hesitant given what her own desires are, but like they are truly in danger, and like Evelyn having these abilities, like Mina is not equipped. Maybe because of Stella not teaching her, but Mina is not equipped to handle this.
I mean, I agree, yes, but Stella is so... She either describes herself or Mina describes her as like having so much knowledge to protect herself with, and like she just refuses to share any of it.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm like, okay, but how is Mina protecting herself with that knowledge you will not impart upon her?
Maybe this is where Sergio could come in for the better, though, because I thought it was absolutely bizarre that Sergio was teaching Mina things, because it's like, I don't get the sense that Sergio is super hot at this stuff. But maybe if he is actually knowledgeable, he should be not just teaching Mina, but interacting with Evelyn directly.
Which might happen, because Sergio was there when Mina felt that connection to the spirit. So he might be there when they have that meeting, and like he might get involved.
That would make sense.
Yeah, Sergio is interesting because he's not technically a medium, but he's been trained to be a medium, basically.
Right.
It seems like Mina has placed herself into like the familial obligation, but Sergio was forced into it almost by Dom. Like, trained and pushed, and like he's supposed to be a medium, so he should be a medium, but he doesn't have like the talent for it, right? Like he can't hear the spirits.
I also think he just doesn't have the desire.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think there's something, I wouldn't go as far as envious. I don't think he's like hateful towards Mina, but there is something about like her getting involved and being not good at it, but like obviously having the gift for it. And what that means as like a Zanetti, and he doesn't have it, right? Like he's not connected to it.
I see what you're saying, because he kind of implies that he knows he's a bit of a disappointment to the family. But I thought that just kind of had to do with his overall willpower to like not want to do a lot of anything, given that he's kind of described as like that, like a basement guy, right? Like if he's still sticking around the parents' house, like he kind of just like plays games and hangs out with his friends. Like I kind of just thought it was like a generic lack of willpower to do work type things, and that includes being a medium. Like I think my thought was he could do those things, he's just like meh, whatever about him.
Oh, I thought it was like he couldn't hear the spirits, but he was still trained to do it. And when you've been prepped your whole life to do a certain thing, you never really get to figure out what you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what you want to do.
That's like what Stella's trying to avoid with Mina too. Like she points out of like wanting Mina to be able to make a choice about her path without feeling the pressure to do this one thing.
Yeah, but Stella is also kind of failing at that, because Mina is like, I want to help my family.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
It's like, okay, but that's not wanting to be a medium. That's wanting to help your family. It's two different things. I don't know. I guess I'm just seeing the best in Sergio. Like it's tough.
I guess. I don't know. Really, why I said I don't like him is because he seems so unmotivated, and like when he comes around to teach, like, or to help her find a scrying focus, I'm like, he just seems so like unbothered, you know?
Oh, I didn't get that at all.
One moment where he's like supportive, and that's like when she has that interaction, and he's like supposed to help her out if things go too far. I thought like it was okay. I can kind of see some like emotion behind him, like some motivation.
Mm-hmm.
But up until that point, I was like, man, like this is like a nice moment. I feel like it's supposed to be a nice moment of where Mina finds her scrying focus. I would have, and she mentions too, like I would have much rather it had happened with Stella or at least someone else, but with Sergio, who I'm like, what do you have to offer here in this situation? I was like, no.
I don't know. Sergio sat with her through like 2 entire boxes of glass baubles, and just, I don't know. There's like a certain dedication to still helping in that regard. I think if he was entirely disinterested, he just wouldn't offer himself at all.
I didn't even feel like he offered himself, though. I feel like he does some things just because he knows he's still living in his dad's house, and Dom will just be like, do this thing. Like, you have to do something, so do this thing, you know?
Yeah, but doesn't that make him, like, isn't that so sad, though? Like, he's still expected to participate in this family work, basically, like to help with the medium stuff, but he can't be a medium. Like he can never completely be what his dad would want him to be. But he's stuck in this weird in-between where like it'll feel like abandoning your family if you leave, which is what the rest of the Zanettis did. And it's like, well, I guess, like, what do? Do you completely cut your dad off and never talk to him again? Like, no, you love your family. So it's like, you're stuck being a medium without being a medium, basically. And there's like, there's nothing else you want because you've never thought about like what you want for yourself because you've been trained to do this your entire life.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like he's been kind of misguided into this one narrow path that doesn't work.
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess I get that. I want to see something else out of him.
Yeah, I think we'll get there. He's been coming around more often. I think he does genuinely care about Mina and like what she wants specifically.
Yeah. She does talk about him like when they grew up, when they were younger, like they felt like siblings. Which I think
Right.
is
Yeah.
common when you're like the only children and cousins, you know?
Yeah. So I'm hopeful for that relationship. And I don't know, I think he's a better person to turn to than Stella at the moment.
Well, Stella's not helpful at all. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I get that though, right? As far as Evelyn needing someone to learn from, like Stella, I think Stella has all of the knowledge. I guess the reason I'm tempted to say they should tell Stella is because there is definitely danger in this situation.
Yeah.
And like Mina's whole thing is like holding back information because she wants to fix things before presenting them to Stella to show that she's capable. But at the end of the day, she's not, and like she's just going to dig them into deeper shit. So I don't think that's the right solution.
Yeah, but it's a YA.
Yeah,
So...
I know.
But anyway, that was a very long Sergio tangent.
Yeah,
I had to defend him.
No, I hear you. Of all the things I thought we were going to talk well about, Sergio wasn't one of them.
I don't know. I think he has the potential to be a very interesting character.
I hope so. Like, honestly, talking more about him, I don't feel as like meh about him, but he just did not enthuse me as a character at first. But I like the potential for growth.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Tangent aside, though, I guess. We've kind of mentioned Stella and Mina have been having a competition and who can keep the most secrets.
Yeah, like mother like daughter in this case, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe the biggest secret, I guess, other than like the demon stuff, is all of the other Zanettis leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Sergio, I think, imparts this information of like there being a family fight and like the word dangerous was thrown around.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's also dangerous for there to be so few mediums in this place. Like, that's also kind of contributing to the behavior of the ghosts a little bit, which makes Stella's hesitance to train Mina all the more confusing.
Right, you think they'd need more people around.
Right.
I mean, presumably whatever the drama is, though, is part of why she doesn't want to train Mina up. Like, she doesn't want Mina involved. And maybe she's just afraid of losing her if some similar drama were to make its way to Mina.
Right, which is ridiculous. Hiding things is like never a good way to protect someone.
Yeah.
Because then if Mina ends up in danger, how is she going to know what to do?
That's the thing too. I think Mina does a lot of like begging and pleading for information, and that like never really works. And you could see that that's been the trend even by the time you get to the beginning of the book. So she kind of takes a different angle and is like, well, like, I understand that things are getting dangerous. Can you please teach me things so I can protect myself? And I thought that was such a more mature and like clever way to ask for help, right? To ask for information, coming from an angle that they can kind of meet in the middle on, right? Where it's about safety. And then Stella's like, yeah, sure. And then still does nothing. Like, I mean, she hands it off to Sergio, I guess, with the scrying focus. But then even then, like, she doesn't give any additional information, no additional help. Mina asks, like, oh, do any Zanettis have non-glass scrying focuses? And she, like, suspiciously doesn't answer that question. So she's just not actually helping her own daughter protect herself.
Right. It seems like she's not confrontational. Like, she's fine to let things sit, and then hopefully they just get forgotten. That seems to be how their relationship works, like, entirely. Like you mentioned, we see it. Like, the beginning of the book itself starts because Mina wants to learn something. Stella agreed, and then Stella was going to leave her asleep and go do the thing anyway. And Mina had to, like, catch her in the night and be like, okay, we're gonna go now, right? And Stella's like, I guess. Like, she's
Yes.
not enthused. And the whole, like, finding a focus object, it seems so important. Like, it's supposed to make you safer, which seems like something that Mina should have, but there is no, like, information given. There's no, like, help. Like, Evelyn helps more than Stella does on that front by taking her to the antique shop, which is where Evelyn ends up finding her own focus in the shell. But regardless, like, that's still helpful to Mina trying to give her something, right? But the Zanetti family, we don't really know what's going on with them, why they left. And, like, not just left, but, like, I think Mina mentions, like, cousins have blocked her. Like, there's, like, no communication.
It is crazy the level of separation that the family has. Where, like, even, like, I don't know. I feel like if this happened to my family, I would absolutely be hitting up the cousins, like, yo, what happened? You know?
Yeah. And if this demonic spirit has been a problem for a while, it makes me wonder, are these things connected?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see how that's not the case. Where they're like, where Stella's like, oh yeah, actually this has been going on for a lot longer than you think it has. I'm like, okay, so did someone create this problem then? Like, it sounds like you're right. Having more of the Zanettis around probably was supposed to be better for managing the spirits, and the fact that there's only kind of two of them doing it now makes things really tough. But to what degree did having that many Zanettis around cause other problems, like maybe the synthesis of a demon, you know, where it's like, actually it's not that helpful because this happened.
Right. That's a good point.
I'm starting to feel like a little bit concerned, and not majorly, like I don't think this will like ruin the book for me or anything, but just how much of the resolution of this book is going to come from withholding of information. Like, I think it's like all the parts are there with the characters we have, but like we're still going to have to go through a mystery arc in order to find them.
Yeah, because when you look at the book, in regards to the mystery, we haven't actually made that much progress, I'd say. A lot of the conversations we have between Evelyn and Mina are like about themselves, right? Like them getting to know each other and getting closer. So it does feel kind of like a prolonging of information. But I don't know. I haven't found it disagreeable yet. Like they are looking into things, like researching things, which makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, it seems like even if Stella has all the answers, for example, which I think is probably still not the case, like they're gonna see through figuring things out for themselves. It's not just gonna be like an exposition from Stella.
Right. And I think in a YA that can still work because it is kind of like a coming of age, right? Like these two need to kind of find their own way. Mina, I think especially in regards to her mediumship. So like her not relying on her mom, I guess is the best way to prove that she can do this, as sucky as that is, right? Like,
yeah.
Her mom is supposed to be her best friend, but obviously Stella isn't helping Mina in the way that matters, I guess, right?
Yeah. There's a bit of a parenting message going on in this book for sure, as far as like being overbearing, kind of, you know, like locking something down to keep it safe, kind of thing.
Right. And on Evelyn's, we get kind of the opposite, right? Like, we have a father that is so disengaged from living, kind of, and Evelyn notes when she gets home and Meredith is there and her dad's there, it feels like a house. It doesn't feel like a house of living beings. It feels like a house of people dying. Like you're all in the same building, but you're not a family, right?
Yeah. And that's definitely, I think that's the point for them. Like there's that sort of contrast between the two families.
And I don't know if that gets better for Evelyn, I'll say.
Yeah.
Like, I guess proving it wasn't her dad could help, but I don't know. We haven't seen enough of him for me to think he'll be majorly involved. Maybe he could. I don't know. He does try with his daughters, I think. But he also, I guess, realizes he's kind of ruined their reputation, right?
Yeah, I think this is the thing, right? Even if they find out who is responsible for the trio's death, they may not find it out in a way that helps Greg at all. Like they might know the answer, but they might not be able to do anything with that information, like in the court of law, you know?
Yeah. So it might just be like a kind of healing for the family, but like Evelyn's goal is kind of clear her dad's name in the town. But yeah, that might not be feasible of a goal.
Yeah. And I think, you know, speaking on the sort of contrast between families, which this is like a thing I'm kind of enjoying about the book, is like there's this, you know, Mina has her family and there's drama, but they do love each other and they are close. Like I think that's really what Evelyn is looking for most. But what Mina tries to get her to realize is that she in fact does have community around her in a way that Mina wishes she has, right? She's got all these people in the town who know her and care about her. And we kind of talked about this at the beginning, where like Evelyn really just doesn't know how to acknowledge that as community, as like care, as opposed to pity or sympathy or obligation. So I'm not sure that the family is going to be healed by the end of the book, because I think the point is going to be acknowledging the community that she does have that actually cares about her already.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. Like, Evelyn talks about wanting to leave and, like, basically follow Meredith's blueprint and, like, start again somewhere else and everything will be great and, like, all of that kind of stuff. But her story does kind of feel like also tying in the mediumness of it. Like, she's probably going to end up staying right where she is, I would assume.
Right.
She might end up working with the sound and, like, the surrounding area, like, scientifically on that side, but it does seem like medium-wise, she will stay in the Bay, and, like, yeah, that community will become her family,
Yeah.
and she'll realize it, right?
Also, maybe Mina's family will become her family.
Yeah, it would be nice. And I think it'd be good for, like, a family like the Zanettis to, like, not that I'm about, like, breaking tradition entirely, but at some point you do have to kind of modernize a little bit.
At least reevaluate.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess on Mina's side, we've kind of talked about it before. She's having trouble with her mediumship, but I don't know. I think she has enough power that she'll get there eventually, but, like, on her own terms. That seems the most plausible ending.
Yeah, she's able to prove that she has abilities, right? It's just not showing up in the same way that she expected it to.
Right.
And I wonder how much of this might have to do with, like, effects of the first summoning that they did together. She's got that sand dollar mark. Maybe something about that kind of affects the way her medium abilities express themselves, or, like, has kind of limited her abilities to the trio or something. You know, like, there seems to be something about that that's kind of affected her expression of mediumness. But I'm not tempted to believe she's not going to end up a medium, though, because of that. Like, I just think it's different. And I wonder if the idea here is breaking tradition, right? Of she's not finding a glass focus, but maybe there is something else here, especially because Stella gets weird about it when she asks about non-glass scrying focuses.
Yeah. The weird thing about her sand dollar mark is it, like, glows. It, like, glows a similar color to, like, I think to the focus. So I'm, like, so curious if you need a physical focus.
Yeah, that's a thought that, at least the idea of not having a physical one also crossed my mind. I was like, maybe she just doesn't need one. But that's a good point, that maybe something about that glow with the sand dollar kind of represents that being a focus, maybe, or, like, some sort of internal thing.
Yeah. I don't know, because, like, the focus is supposed to keep you tied to the side of the living, right? So it's like, I guess it has to be a physical manifestation of something.
Interesting that it's a sand dollar, though, and then Evelyn's is a shell, right? Because now we're kind of talking the sort of marine category of scrying focus, right? If we're to consider the sand dollar mark a scrying focus. Like, yeah, maybe that is, like, the modernization or the next step. Or maybe that, like, signifies something about, I don't know, I'm like, about family, or just about the connection between these two characters. It's just like, where is it coming from? Where does it originate? Is a tougher question. Like, I briefly had thoughts of, like, okay, like, are they actually, which this would throw a lot of things off, I'm sure, but, like, are they secretly related? You know, like, something like that, where there's, like, another, like, familial background that we're not understanding where these things come from. I also just want to know, like, again, on the Zanetti family breakup, like, if part of that hesitation to talk about what the non-glass focuses were is because of something that the rest of the Zanetti family was doing with non-glass focuses. I just think there's a lot of behind the scenes things that could explain these behaviors.
Yeah. I don't know. We're getting, like, traditional information of how things work, but obviously the situation is changing. We get, like, the pollution and climate change in general is affecting ghosts. Also with the lack of mediums, I guess. So, like, there's a physical and, like, a spiritual change happening, which I guess kind of mirrors what's happening with the focuses if Mina's isn't physical. I don't know. I don't know. But in my head, I think I said this before, but in my head, the spirit becoming more demonic is probably because of the pollution. That makes the most sense as to why Evelyn got that vision. I do wonder if we're going to ever figure out who the spirit is.
Yeah, at first I really did think, like, the trio made the demon, but then Stella was like, actually, the demon's been around. So it's like, oh, that kind of ruins that theory already. But I'm having trouble believing that the demon has actually consumed the trio if the trio can be contacted separately. So I'm not sure I know what the demon is, and maybe we won't ever actually know like if it is a particular person. I do think we'll probably get a connection to the Zanetti family, but I'm not sure it's going to be like it was this person's spirit, or if it's going to be something a little bit more, I don't know, weird, I guess.
I guess it depends on how long it takes to cannibalize a ghost, right? Like, it might take years for a spirit to be consumed entirely.
I don't know. It seems like they got the Giacomo guy pretty quickly.
Maybe. Did they completely consume him, though, or did they just, like, latch on to him?
Yeah, that's a good question. It felt like to me they had consumed him, but actually I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. I mean, another possibility is the trio is connected to the spirit, but they're not actively being consumed. They're being used to kind of hold the spirit back, which I think goes into my main theory. I think the trio was sacrificed, and I think they were sacrificed to quell the spirit. And I think the people that did it
Stella and Dom.
were Stella and Dom, yes.
That's crazy. Here's the thing. I feel like Stella is quite dodgy, but I'm not sure that I think Dom is.
I don't know. Dom feels like a follower to me.
I guess I could see that. I mean, it's even hard for me to think that Stella would have done that, but she is so deep on the like protection thing that if she could have motivated herself to do something like that with like the idea of protecting her daughter, then maybe she could have done that.
She's just being so weird. Like, there was obviously something that happened with the family, and the demon's been a problem for a while, and Stella is sure that the trio died by human hands. She gets weird when she mentions that.
Wouldn't it be weird for her to say that, though? Like, if she could just pass it off as the spirits did it? Like, knowing that she was the one who actually did it, don't you think she would try to get away with being like, oh, yep, it was the spirits. Nothing we can do.
I'm trying to think, like, what would she tell her daughter, which is most likely to get Mina to stop looking into it? If it's just a normal human murder, then that, like, separates the demon from the situation?
So that way she's, like, less likely to investigate the paranormal side?
Yeah, maybe.
But what's the motivation to not have her investigate the paranormal side in that case? Like, if it wasn't that.
I don't know. I wonder if Stella knows Mina and the demon are connected somehow because of the ritual they did.
Do we think Stella knows that Mina and Evelyn actually did that, even though they never said it?
I think so.
I think so too, right? Like, I don't think that's actually something they can hide from her. So I think with that, maybe so. Maybe that would be true then. I guess I'm having trouble coming up with other people who I think could have done it, but that's because I'm still having trouble believing it was human hands, even though I believe Stella as a professional and all that. Like, I really can't get it out of my head that, like, the kids were, like, super into the paranormal activity and, like, tried summoning something and it, like, bit back, you know? Maybe that's just because it's, like, an obvious explanation of not thinking enough about it. I'm having trouble thinking of something else. I think also I'm attributing a lot of Stella's dodginess to whatever the family drama is, more so than the trio.
There's also the possibility that Stella is a lot more like Mina than we assume, and, like, she did something risky and that's why the demon exists.
Yeah, I mean, that's more the line I'm thinking. Yeah. That she, like, created the demon somehow.
Yeah, and that's why the family was upset and, like, cut off ties with her. But that if that's the case, then I don't think Stella had to do with the drowning Summer situation.
Yeah.
But I think that's possible too.
Yeah, it's hard to say with that family separation thing if I kind of am leaning towards Stella maybe created whatever it is and Dom stuck around to, like, help out because he's her brother, you know, and they were close, or if they did it together, but I kind of just leaning towards Stella. But I think there's a pretty significant chance that it was everyone but them who were involved with something not good, and they kind of ran away from the situation and kind of left it to Stella and Dom to clean up their mess. Like, I think that's also an option.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I guess it depends on if we get to the end of this book and Stella is supposed to be a hero or not, right? Like,
yeah, which I think is very much what's up in the air right now for this.
Yeah. But for the Drowning Summer itself, I really can't think of who else it could be.
Yeah, unless it's someone we haven't been introduced to or something.
Yeah.
There was, like, a brief mention at the beginning of the book of, like, some amateur medium, but I kind of just figured they were talking about Evelyn without realizing it in that case.
I wonder if Meredith has anything.
Actually, that's a great point, because there is that weird suspicious thing from earlier in the book that makes me think we should be thinking about her. And what if she... Okay, here's the thing, right? Evelyn is a medium, and we don't really know of her other family members being medium. But that doesn't mean they aren't. So maybe Meredith is also one, and there's some involvement because of that. Also, like, what if Meredith is the one that killed them? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. If she was doing, like, her own ritual of some kind.
Yeah, especially if she, like, wasn't invited in with the trio despite dating one of them.
Yeah.
Can I share my wild theory while we're on this?
Yes.
Like, my craziest theory, given this idea of Evelyn having other mediums in the family, is that Greg himself, this is the father, Greg is also a medium and, like, actually did summon something himself that killed the trio, meaning he wasn't responsible for their deaths, but maybe it was, like, unintentional, right? Like, maybe it wasn't actually like he was trying to kill them, but he just, like, didn't do it right. Maybe that summons, like, the pre-existing demon that came from some other source and led to their deaths. So that would explain why Evelyn is also a medium. And because Mina was connected to that family by doing the summoning with Evelyn, this is why she's not able to use her own family's traditional methods for finding a scrying focus, and, like, wasn't able to find a glass thing that works, because she actually does need to find something that's in line with the traditions of Evelyn's family.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess there would be a certain, I don't know if irony is the right word, of, like, Evelyn trying to clear her father's name, but it is just her father, right?
Yeah, because they never, like, go to confirm this, right? Like, they just assume, at this point, they just believe that the father hasn't done it, which seems likely, but, like, he could have.
Well, he does have the alibi, though. I guess if he did the ritual before that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if we're talking about, like, working with spiritual stuff, like, I do think something could have he could have done something to lead to their deaths, even if he wasn't there in the moment.
Right.
But then also the way we see the ritual work the second time, like, things do get written over, right? So, like, maybe he did do it originally, or maybe even at the same time he did do it, but because they did the ritual, it kind of rewrote history a little bit, and suddenly there's this alibi that Evelyn was walking with him. But that didn't actually happen in the first timeline. That happened in the second timeline after the ritual.
That would be such a betrayal.
Wouldn't it?
That's crazy.
And could, like, maybe lend some credence to why there's some skepticism about it. I mean, obviously Meredith and Siobhan would not have been conscious of the first timeline, like actively, but maybe there'd be this underlying activity of, like, the timeline has changed and they don't believe it as much because of that.
The only thing is, like, why? Like, why were they murdered? Right? Because if it's, like, a serial killer, then they wouldn't just stop at 3 teenagers. They would keep doing it. But it's been, like, 6 years of nothing.
Yeah, but also no one goes around that area anymore, right? Like, I think before, people were more willing to entertain going to the coves and stuff. But if, like, Greg did something over there, and then, like, the next people to come through where this trio and the demon was just kind of, like, dancing around that area, then they were the first ones to get taken.
Oh, okay. So, like, not a completely accidental death.
Yes,
is the Greg situation.
I think it kind of has to be. Yeah. I also just don't see why this adult would be motivated to kill these 3 teens. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because the dollars over the eyes is, like, important. It's either, the ghost feeling bad about what it's done, or, like, a ritual situation. Killing these kids on purpose.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I kind of did forget about the sand dollar eye thing, so that does kind of imply some sort of active thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think we have a good little set of thoughts here of where this could go.
Yeah, and then obviously it's entirely possible the actual murderer will be revealed in the second part, and there would have been no way for us to guess them. So
yeah, that is definitely still possible. Wouldn't be my preference, of course, but I think that's a possibility. Is we just don't have the information we need.
Right. But fun theories. I guess we'll see how dark this book gets. I think it is technically a horror.
It was reading like a horror to me in the early chapters, like particularly with that scene I mentioned earlier of the bathroom haunting.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's a horror scene right there. So
yeah, I feel like it's still been quite light though, all things considered.
Yeah, overall.
But I guess once we get more into, like, murder and things like that, we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you have your own thoughts and theories, all of our socials are in the description, and we'll finish this next time.
Goodbye.